Almighty God, by whom alone kings reign and princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding. We, thine unworthy servant, here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultation. And grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudice, and partial affections, the result of all our counsel may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the king, the public weal, peace and tranquility of the island, and uniting and knitting together of hearts of all persons and estate within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Members of this Honorable House here present, I wish to inform you that the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker are unavoidably absent for the start of today's meeting. In accordance with Standing Order 4.2, I now call upon you to elect from among yourselves as Speaker a member who is not a minister or parliamentary secretary.
Madam Clerk, I propose the member for Hanover Western to be elected as Speaker for the day.
Are there any other nominations? Any seconders? I now invite the member from Hanover Western to take the chair as the Speaker for today's sitting.
This Honorable House now resumes its sitting. It is indeed a great honor and a pleasure to welcome all of you to this sitting of the Honorable House of Representatives, today being Wednesday, May 8, 2024. I would like to extend a special welcome to Ms. Olga Izaza, Country Representative of the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, Ms. Pamela Foster, Acting Country Representative from the U.S. Agency for International Development, Dr. Adrian Stokes, Chairman, Education Transformation Oversight Committee, Professor Denzel Williams, Dr. Kevin Brown, Dr. Ashburn Pinnock, Ms. Corrine Richards, Mr. Darian Henry, Mr. Fillmore McCarthy, Ms. Claudette Horton, students and teachers from Mona High School, students and teachers from Kingston Technical High School, residents from St. Andrew Eastern, other specially invited guests, and those who are joining us online via the various social media platforms and the PBCJ live stream. Welcome to you all. Call of the roll.
Mrs. Holness, Mr. Clark, Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Holness, Dr. Clark, Dr. Chang, Ms. Grange, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Malahoo Fort, Dr. Tufton, Mr. Mackenzie, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Charles Jr., Mr. Green, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Terrelong, Ms. Smith, Dr. Dunn, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Main, Mr. Davis, Mr. Witter, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brownberg, Dr. Charles, Mr. Chin, Mr. Cousins, Ms. Crawford, Ms. Daly, Mr. Golding, Mr. Graham, Dr. Guy, Ms. Hamilton, Ms. Hannah, Mr. Enriquez, Mr. Henry, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lawrence, Ms. Lee, Mr. Miller, Mr. Montague, Ms. Morrison, Mrs. Nita Garvey, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Samuda, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Siblis, Mr. Slowly, Mrs. Vaz, Mr. Warmington, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Wright, Dr. Chang. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Members will proceed with the agenda. Statements by ministers, announcement, bills brought from the Senate, petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions and answers to questions, motions that be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice, motions relating to sittings of the House, motions for leave to introduce bills, and presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained. Public business.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today, it is our intention to continue the sectoral debate with contribution from the Honorable Fayval Williams, Minister of Education and Youth, and Member of Parliament for St. Andrew Eastern.
Madam Speaker, while you have extended a warm welcome to the many guests we have today, I wish to extend a very special welcome to the students of that noble institution of Kingston Technical High School, which is very close to this very outstanding building.
Thank you, Member. I now invite the Minister of Education and Youth to speak.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in this honorable House to make my 8th contribution to the sectoral debate. It is truly an honor. It would be remiss of me not to begin with gratitude, and so I pause to thank the people of St. Andrew Eastern for granting me the great honor and the privilege to serve as their member of Parliament. I also express my heartfelt thanks to the Most Honorable Prime Minister Andrew Holness for allowing me to do so as the Minister of Education and Youth. Madam Speaker, it is not possible to execute my duties without the support of my husband or two daughters, my extended family, my many friends, the management team of St. Andrew Eastern, committed heads of division, my entire worker corps and supporters, and of course, my two close protection officers who go above and beyond the call of duty day after day. To each of you, I remain truly grateful. I also take the opportunity to thank the team at the Ministry of Education and Youth, led by Dr. Kassan Troop, Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Terry Ann Thomas Gale, Chief Education Officer Acting, all the agency heads, the cadre of senior officers at the Central Ministry and across the 7 regions, the staff, my team in my office, including my advisors and the other members of the executive management team, portfolio agencies, and all who serve the Ministry of Education and Youth in various capacities for their individual and collective commitment in this consequential effort called Transforming Education for National Development Trend. Madam Speaker, let me also acknowledge our school boards, our principals, our teachers, our parents, and the support staff in all our schools. They deserve our gratitude for putting themselves forward to educate the nation's children. Today, we celebrate Teachers' Day, and to our Jamaican teachers, I say, you are the backbone of our education system, and you deserve to be commended for your work. Madam Speaker, please allow me to pause and extend a happy Teachers' Day to all our teachers and educational practitioners. I say a big thank you for all that you do. It is through our school leaders and teachers that we have begun to see the implementation of the recommendations from the Orlando Patterson-led Jamaica Education Transformation Commission report, commissioned by the Most Honorable Prime Minister. To date, we have begun the implementation of the recommendations in the education system, which has 1,009 public schools, 2,431 early childhood institutions, 500 prep and private high schools, 21 tertiary institutions, 600,000 students, 25,000 teachers, and many, many, many parents. In the words of Benjamin Franklin, who was also known to be an inventor, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Hear, hear. This underscores the idea that education and learning have enduring value and can yield significant returns over time. Madam Speaker, I begin with the immediate threat that concerns us the most in the education sector, the matter of school violence. It is true that it has overshadowed in a most negative way all the efforts of our principals, our teachers, our parents, the students themselves, and the Ministry of Education and Youth. School violence is student violence that occurs on school property, on the way to and from school, on the way to and from school-sponsored events, or during those school-sponsored events. We know that school violence disrupts learning and has a negative effect on students, schools, and the broader communities. Madam Speaker, When we look at the data from our critical incident reports that schools are required to submit within 24 hours of the critical incident for the period January 22 to January 2022 to January 2023, a total of 55 critical incident reports were submitted through the regional offices to the Safety and Security in Schools unit at the Central Ministry. It is instructive to note that the 55 critical incidents occurred at 50 different schools, 15 primary and 35 high schools. 5 of the schools had 2 critical incidents each. And these range from gang violence to physical assault to robbery, to break-ins at the school, to school bus accidents, to alleged sexual grooming, to drowning, to vandalism, to stabbing, to attempted abduction, to brawls, to physical altercations, to a fire and alleged sexual assault. While 50 schools represent approximately 5% of the total number of primary and secondary schools in the education sector, these incidents of violence and assaults on school property are way too frequent for a small society such as Jamaica's, where most of us know each other. Yes. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say to Jamaicans that if you believe it is the sole responsibility of the principal, the teachers, and the Ministry of Education to solve school violence, I humbly ask you to think again. Yes, the education sector has a big role to play, but we have to look at the treatment that our children receive at some homes and in their communities that will determine their state of mind when they arrive at school. We have to consider that in some communities, very loud music and selectors screaming at the top of their voices until the wee hours of the morning during a school night in many communities that determine if our children arrive at school fully rested or simply exhausted from lack of sleep and just want to put their heads on the desk. It is the lewd lyrics being broadcast in some of the public passenger vehicles that our students have to travel in to get to school that will determine if they arrive at school in a calm spirit or sexually charged. Add to this the access to weapons and drugs and the fact that many of our children are witnessing violent acts in their homes and within their communities. And it is not difficult, Madam Speaker, to understand that it does not take much to spark school violence. So I reiterate, Madam Speaker, that the responsibility lies with all of us as Jamaicans. We all have a part to play in eradicating incidents of school violence. Madam Speaker, given that there are 190 school days in the school year, 55 critical incidents at our schools equate to a critical incident happening somewhere in the education sector every 3.5 school days. Madam Speaker, this is madness. As we analyze the data for this school year, a year in which we had 79 different schools reporting bomb threats, we're seeing more and more of the fights happening off school premises. And in those videos, we're not seeing adults intervening. Instead, we see students encouraging, egging on the fight while they video. For the fights that happen on school premises, I know that the principals, the deans of discipline, senior teachers, and other adults rush to intervene, which reduces the severity of the fight. They also follow up with their disciplinary processes. Students should know that on or off school premises, school violence is unacceptable.
Hear, hear.
In our schools, we strive to promote a culture of safety, respect, and support and an environment where all students can thrive. Madam Speaker, that is why we have employed an approach that is multi-pronged, and it starts with the safety and security policy that is designed to prevent violence. It clearly spells out how to implement physical security measures, such as searches of students' school bags, organizing training programs for school personnel to recognize warning signs and intervene effectively, counseling at-risk individuals, developing crisis and emergency plans, assigning roles for students, parents, and the community, and addressing and resolving conflicts in a constructive manner. Currently, Madam Speaker, school resource officers or police officers are assigned to a group of schools, and though no longer physically operating for more educational institutions, they continue to provide valuable support to schools. And this includes, but is not limited to, the following. They coordinate searches upon request. They visit schools regularly. We have motorized patrols in the general school environments before and after school hours. There's regular patrols in the transport and town centers to prevent students loitering during school hours. They do safety audits and reports upon request. They investigate critical incidents. They provide training sessions for staff and students. They do motivational talks. They do gang prevention intervention. They have summer camps. They have mentorship programs. Madam Speaker, we have several behavioral support services in schools, beginning with the school-wide positive behavior interventions and support that we call SWPBIS. It is a Caribbean-wide program that is in 509 primary and secondary schools in Jamaica. It is a framework designed to enhance students' understanding of behavior expectations at school. SWPBIS builds and/or changes the social culture within the schools in which it is practiced. This is a universal school-wide prevention strategy aimed at reducing behavior problems that lead to discipline, referrals, and suspensions, and change perceptions of school safety. Madam Speaker, we have Health and Family Life Education, HFLE. It is a life skills-focused education process to help students achieve their potential and assure their healthy contribution to social, cultural, and economic development of Jamaica. This is timetabled in our schools, and it's taught from primary through secondary. It focuses on problem solving, conflict resolution, how to deal with stress, how to say no, how to walk away. The program also provides guidance and counseling to individuals, groups, and families. Another program in schools is civics education. Since December of 2022, civics was reintroduced and is being implemented in our schools. There are 3 levels to the Civics in Schools program. Grades 1 to 3, awakening of awareness. Grades 4 to 6, awakening of social consciousness. Grades 7 to 9, awakening of social responsibility. We know, Madam Speaker, that civics education encourages good citizenship, greater respect for cultural integrity, nation building, among other things. Civics education helps to create a Jamaican who is confident and productive, who is successful, is a lifelong learner, a Jamaican who is deeply rooted in the Jamaican culture, a Jamaican who understands his or her rights and responsibilities as a Jamaican citizen. So, Madam Speaker, having reintroduced civics in school, you can imagine my consternation when the opposition broadcasted that they are going to reintroduce civics in schools, something this government has implemented. In that, anyone can step outside to view the books that are out there, civics curriculum books that are there to see the evidence of this. Madam Speaker, there's counseling service that we provide in schools to include fully funded counseling from external clinicians. Counseling is mandated for all students who are suspended for breach of school rules, especially where violent behavior is concerned. Follow-up must be done to ensure that this is maintained. In schools, Madam Speaker, we have student leadership development consisting of peer counselors, student counselors, prefects, club leaders. We have restorative practice training programs, Madam Speaker. Earlier this year, in February, the Ministry of Education and Youth signed a memorandum of understanding for the continued delivery of restorative practice training in schools across Jamaica. Through this engagement, 500 schools will be targeted and some 12,500 participants. That includes school administrators, educators, students, parents, and guardians will be trained. In the previous year, under the MOU of May 2022, training took place in 258 schools, impacting more than 7,900 students, 1,109 educators, and 1,034 family members. Madam Speaker, restorative justice, we believe, is an important tool in reducing violence by enabling individuals to have access to a dispute resolution process at the early stage of conflict to avoid escalation to violent reaction. In the school as well, Madam Speaker, you know we have clubs and societies, uniform groups, sporting programs, and we use these to engage our children. When we look at the uniform groups in schools, we continue to have the Girl Guides, Brownies, Boys Brigade, Cub Scouts, Cadets, Pathfinders. They play an invaluable role in shaping the character and awakening the social conscience of our young people. We continue to give support, and we continue to reach out to parents, guardians, other individuals to be trained so that they can lead one or more of these groups. We could expand the uniform groups significantly if more adults volunteered and made themselves available to be trained. And so we want to encourage you to come on board to help us to expand this partnership. And of course, in many of our schools, they have partnership with pastors, with chaplains, with peace and justice centers. They have interministerial initiatives, local police, and on and on. We have our international development partners, such as UNICEF and USAID, Positive Pathways. There are capacity building and program development initiatives in schools. This year, we've been focusing heavily on literacy and numeracy initiatives because we understand from our teachers that when students are not reading as their peers in their class, that can cause negative behavior in those students. And so, yes, and we've seen many, many examples. Teachers are happy to point them out where when the students begin to read comfortably, that their behavior changes as well. Yes, their self-esteem. And so, Madam Speaker, we have 930 guidance counselors in the education sector. We have 140 deans of discipline. We have 210 health and family life teachers in our high schools, 187 school nurses. Together, these professionals total 1,467 at a cost of approximately $6 billion annually. to provide the behavioral support for students in school. And even in December of last year, we introduced behavior change student support team approach and allocated another $72 million to support this program. It is where the deans of discipline get together with the classroom teacher, the guidance counselor, the school nurse, the HFLE teacher, the principal or the vice principal, and they form one unit to provide collaborative support services for the students. And I want to acknowledge the deans of discipline who came forward with this idea to combine instead of working independently. And of course, from our international partners, there's USAID Positive Pathways program that provides counseling. We have Transforming Our Perspective, Cognitive Behavior Therapy, another USAID program. There's case management consisting of social workers in the schools, in the zones of special operation. We also work with the Jamaica Conservation Development Trust. They've been partnering with us to do behavior change. They take students deemed high risk on hikes and offer therapeutic sessions. We have implemented Psychosocial Week, a time when our schools pause the regular curriculum. Specialists are engaged to do therapy, role-playing, how to focus on conflict skills, how to walk away. They do inspirational sessions and motivational talks. And schools can do this repeatedly, depending on their context. Excellent. Yes, clinical services are also provided. The service is available to students and to teachers, and there's an annual budget of $15 million. Madam Speaker, only recently, Jamaica, through the Ministry of National Security, signed a £15 million violence prevention partnership with the UK to last over 6 years. This will also be focused on developing effective response to school violence. And Madam Speaker, in our basket of initiatives, we focus on parenting as well. And we are very encouraged to see the take-up of our parenting sessions. The topics are many, and these are designed based on consultation with parents as to what would help them the most. We have sessions that focus on parenting with a purpose, being a supportive parent, building self-esteem in children, communicating with children about difficult issues, being a positive role model, being a present parent, being a supportive parent. And those are just a few of the programs that we have been providing to our parents in our schools. This effort has been with the help of the European Union through the Citizen Security Program. We're grateful and implore them to continue the very important partnership with the much-needed funds they provide. We are seeing results. Madam Speaker, we know that effective parenting can work with the other interventions to reduce school violence. So will all the multi-pronged efforts that we're putting into transforming the educational landscape in Jamaica. Transformation, indeed. Yes. Madam Speaker, I touched earlier on literacy, but I just want to explain a little bit more what is happening with literacy in our schools. The European Union procured and piloted the Arrow literacy software in 6 high schools: Haile Selassie High, Kingston High, Norman Manley High, Holy Trinity High, Spot Valley High, and Grange Hill High School. We're seeing improved literacy levels for the students involved in the program. We also have the Creative Language-Based Learning, CLBL, that trains and equips teachers with the Linda Mode Bell resources to improve the delivery of remedial literacy and numeracy intervention programs. Just yesterday at the Mountain View Primary School for Read Across Jamaica Day, I was privileged to sit in one of the classrooms, the grade 2 classroom, and watch while the teacher and students interacted with this training or teaching methodology, the creative language-based learning. And when I spoke to the principal afterwards, she said those children in that grade 2 class came into that school as grade 1 students, reading way, 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 way below their age level. Since September of last year, they were exposed to this creative language-based learning, and she's reporting to me that those children are reading at their grade level or better. So, Madam Speaker, we will continue with that and other programs to help our children read better, understand better, and so that they're able to move through their various grades with confidence, so that when they get to high schools, they're ready. Madam Speaker, the final in this segment is character education. It's an important addition to the many initiatives we have. We were provided with the wisdom of many professionals as to how we could design this initiative that would impact the psychosocial development of our children. And I want to say thank you to all the stakeholders who gave of their time unstintingly. This initiative was chaired by Dr. Michael Abrams, and we had the benefit of the research that Professor Gale did. We also had the benefit of our own Dr. Sophia Longmore. We analyzed character traits and fleshed out core principles. Where we are already teaching, we identified that. Where we had gaps, we are filling those. Our plans are to launch the character education framework in September for target institutions. Madam Speaker, in addition to all the programs and initiatives, we deploy cameras in our schools to help us detect and deter. Based on a recent survey, we know that we have across the education sector some 1,955 cameras. We have started to replace some of them so that there's better technology. We have also embarked on a significant procurement in order to outfit our schools, and we should be able to put out that tender by the first term of the next year. Madam Speaker, here again, I have to say I was shocked to hear the opposition in an open letter to me putting forward as a new and novel idea, putting cameras in schools when we already have in our schools many cameras. I'm open to getting recommendations. However, if these recommendations are for programs we are already doing, it does not add much value. Madam Speaker, I want you to allow me to acknowledge the presence of Andrew Young. Andrew, seated in the gallery, is now 35 years old. He grew up feeling rejected and so sought refuge in a school gang back in first form. It was at that same time that he was introduced to a gun. Despite moving schools, he kept associating with the wrong crowds. and was incarcerated a few times. His experiences, however, were not in vain, and today he stands as a testament to resilience and as a symbol of hope for many students, and I'd love for him to stand. Andrew has turned his life around. He has even written a book called The Power of Pain. This is a man who has changed his life through support and who is now committed to impacting positive change in our young people.
Hear, hear. Very good, Andrew.
I share Andrew's story with you today because I want all young people listening to know that all is not lost.
Absolutely.
Hear, hear.
You may have messed up, but you can wheel and come again.
Hear, hear.
Thank you. Andrew, thank you for sharing your story with us and also for being here today. We as a government, as a Ministry of Education and Youth, are committed to continue taking proactive measures to prevent violence, respond effectively to incidents, and support those affected. We must significantly reduce violence in our schools to allow us the additional mind space to focus on moving forward with our mission of transforming education for national development. Madam Speaker, we are trending. We are transforming education for national development. Madam Speaker, all of our children and all of us as adults are living in the fourth industrial revolution with technologies that are reshaping industries, economies, and even society itself, profoundly influencing how we live and work. As we move forward into this fourth industrial revolution, our children, our students, and all of us will need to adapt to the changing demands that require creativity, problem solving, adaptability, digital literacy, and emotional intelligence. STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education, is an interdisciplinary approach to learning that integrates concepts and principles from these four disciplines. STEM education aims to prepare students with the knowledge, skills, and competencies needed to thrive in a rapidly evolving world driven by innovation and technology. STEM education engages students in hands-on, inquiry-based learning experiences that emphasize problem-solving, critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration. Madam Speaker, STEM education is increasingly recognized as essential for preparing students for the demands of the 21st century workforce. 2 weeks ago, our most honorable Prime Minister declared Jamaica a STEM island. This means that as a country, we want to see our education sector graduating many, many STEM students. We want to be known as the STEM graduate producing country, one that promotes the creative and logical thinking of our students. Madam Speaker, we have already identified one of the 6 locations in Bernard Lodge, St. Catherine, to locate the first STEM school. Since then, the land has been transferred to the Ministry of Education and Youth, and the design work has begun. We've also identified another location in St. Anne. Land transfer is in progress, and other works have begun. Our agency, the National Education Trust, fondly known as NET, is leading on this along with our World Bank partners for the location in St. Anne. And I want to say thank you to the team led by CEO Latoya Harris-Garthy and the board of NET for the work that you continue to do. Madam Speaker, the Transforming Education for National Development Trend public education campaign is designed to build public awareness regarding the 365 recommendations as outlined in the Jamaica Education Transformation Commission, the Reform of Education in Jamaica 2021 report that was tabled in this Honorable House in May 2023 and in the Senate in June 2023. The reports, both the long one and the abridged version, are available on our website and that of the Prime Minister. And so I want to say, Madam Speaker, trend is not a PR stunt. Through town hall meetings, school visits, which are referred to as pop-ups, at schools such as Black River High School, St. Andrew High School, Wycliffe Martin High School, and Anchovy High School, principal engagement sessions, and board chairmen and bursars. All of these engagement sessions, whether they're held virtually or face-to-face, allow us to continue to spread the message of education transformation. Madam Speaker, we're not afraid to utilize every media platform, traditional or non-traditional, that we can to appeal to the minds and hearts of Jamaicans for their support. The education sector cannot transform without the buy-in of parents, communities, and the wider Jamaica. The Trend campaign allows Jamaicans to be part of the process as we seek to implement the 365 recommendations. I dare say many of which are in similar transformation reports that were commissioned from as far back as 2004, some 20 years ago. Madam Speaker, there is a strong resolve at the Ministry of Education and Youth, championed by P.S. Troop, that this time, the Ministry of Education and Youth cannot afford to not implement. The ministry cannot afford to falter. So we have committed our collective strengths to getting results. And that is why we took the time to develop an implementation plan with the help of the Mona School of Business. Having taken on the full responsibility for that implementation plan, and in order to be true to our ideals, we have a technical team that is charged with leading the coordination of these efforts, and a team responsible for monitoring and reporting on the progress. Madam Speaker, it is intended that after 8 years of transformation, and by working through the 7 pillars, the Ministry of Education and Youth will have achieved success on many fronts. To begin with, in terms of the indicator of success, literacy rate at the grade 4 level. That currently stands at 68%. Our projection by 2031 is 92%. Numeracy rate at the grade 4 level currently stands at 64%. Our 2031 projection is 80%. Effective transitioning at all levels of the sector. Where we are right now, having done an assessment of all the 4-year-old children in Jamaica, 27,179 of them, we know that 63% of these children require no action, meaning they will go through the system independently, they will learn, and they will be successful. But we know that 8.6%, or 2,345 of them, will need monitoring in class. As we look forward, we'd like that number to decline to be no more than 5%. And we know currently that about 7,673 of our children require even more screening. And we'd love to see that number decline by the time we get to 2031. Yes. Madam Speaker, for our secondary schools, in terms of mathematics at the CSEC level, we're currently achieving 42%. We'd love to see that at 70% by 2031. English at the CSEC level, 72% of our children, of our students are successful here. We'd love for that to be greater than 95%. When we look at the City and Guilds English, 87% of our children are achieving. We want that to be up to 98% by 2031. In City and Guilds Mathematics, 70% of the students now. We'd love to see that in the 90 to 95% range. And in skill area, we have about 87% of our students that are achieving some skill. We want to get that to about 95% by 2031. We want our students to be ready for higher learning and the world of work. And yes, we would still like them to sit exams and pass 5 or more subjects, including maths and English. Right now, we're at approximately 32%. We want to see that in the 60 to 80% range by 2031. Holistic education in terms of students' personal and social development as rated by the National Education Trust, an independent agency within the ministry. It ranks the students on that score as being 70% satisfactory. We want to get that figure into the 90% range. And in terms of completion of schools, we have about 85% of our students that complete school currently. We want to get that to 95%. And we want our school performance ratings as measured by the NEI, National Education Inspectorate reports. Currently, where we are, 3 of our schools need immediate support. 238 are unsatisfactory. 527 are satisfactory. 57 are good. 14 are exceptionally high. We want to see at least 80% of schools rated good and above by 2031. Madam Speaker, we know that investments will be needed to fully implement all the recommendations. We utilized the Mona School of Business to estimate the quantum of investment that would be required. And if you notice, I'm not saying cost, I'm saying investment, because that is what it will be. Of the 7 pillars of transformation, infrastructure and technology require the most investment to implement. The infrastructure component is estimated to take the longest time period, approximately 20 years, because we have to significantly upgrade many of the 1,009 primary and secondary schools. We acknowledge that the vast majority of our schools, we acknowledge that the vast majority of our principals and teachers, we acknowledge that the vast majority of our principals and teachers are struggling with school buildings that were constructed many decades ago, with roofs that need to be totally replaced and schools that really need a total renovation or a knock down and build back better with modern amenities, comfortable and adequate staff rooms, well-ventilated or cooled classrooms, classrooms in which the teachers can hear him or herself talk instead of being drowned out by other classes around. Since 2021, Madam Speaker, the year of the transformation report, we have spent $1.2 billion for critical maintenance. Yes.
Madam Speaker, I now ask that the standing orders be suspended to enable the Minister to continue her speech to its conclusion. notwithstanding the time limit on speeches.
The question before the House is that the standing orders be suspended to enable the Minister to continue her speech to its conclusion, notwithstanding the time limit on speeches. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Minister?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, colleagues. So since 2021, the year of the transformation report, we spent approximately $1.2 billion for critical maintenance. For major infrastructure works, we spent approximately $2 billion. Together, this totals $3.2 billion. However, on the modern infrastructure we need to align with the 21st century, we should be investing some 0.3% of GDP. And over time, you will see us tending towards this. What we're spending now to keep up with maintenance needs, some of the school upgrades, and so on. Madam Speaker, this government has been allocating more of the budget to education. This new budget year, approximately 20% of the non-debt expenditure of the budget is for education.
Wonderful.
Contrast this, Madam Speaker, to the budget we inherited in 2015-2016, a mere 15.7% of the non-debt part of the budget. Very low. All right. Madam Speaker, full technology implementation to all our schools will take approximately 8 years to complete. We're 2 years into the technology transformation of the education sector. We just completed broadband internet connectivity in all our schools in St. Thomas, and even more recently, we have outfitted them with Wi-Fi that's available in all classrooms.
And we'll be around to finish all of them.
Gone will be the days when connectivity is only available in the administrative office at a school. We're doing all we can to open up access to technology in our schools, and so we're pleased to note that to date, 663 of our public schools and places of safety have been connected to the national school network.
We will be doing all of them.
And we will continue.
We will be doing all of them.
We will continue until we have all 1,009 schools so equipped. And we will be doing our early childhood institutions, and we have been helping our tertiary institutions as well. Madam Speaker, together, infrastructure and technology accounts for approximately 69% of the total estimated investment in transformation. Behind infrastructure and technology is early childhood education, right, in terms of its requirement for investment in order to transform. And then the third pillar, which is teaching, curriculum, and teacher training, is expected to require investments equating to 10.2% of the total investment. Altogether, Madam Speaker, these three pillars account for 93% of the total investment estimated for transformation. We are down the road, Madam Speaker. I'm happy to report that so far, work has begun on 101 of the 365 recommendations. We have been tracking our progress on all the pillars: governance and accountability, early childhood, teaching, curriculum and teacher training, tertiary sector, TVET, infrastructure and technology, and the financing of education. Madam Speaker, naming the Education Transformation Oversight Committee, ETOC, was the first of the recommendations to be implemented. I must pause to thank the members of ETOC for their many hours of service. ETOC is chaired by Dr. Adrian Stokes, who is relentless in ensuring results. And I want to especially thank him. He's here in the gallery today for his insights, and I'd ask for him to stand, and his encouragement, along with the many cross-section of stakeholders and the Ministry of Education and Youth team members, including the Chief Education Transformation Officer and Support Team. ETOP meets weekly to hear the report on the progress of implementation. Madam Speaker, let me also take this opportunity to share that to date, ETOC has delivered 4 quarterly results to the nation. And just 2 weeks ago, I laid the most recent report before this honorable House. After 1 year into our efforts, I can say definitively that the transformation of education sector is on in earnest. And I want to say thank you to the entire team across the education sector for your embrace of transformation. Thank you so much. As we align ourselves with the vision of our stakeholders, being the best versions of themselves, students with good reading skills, more of them liking and performing well in the areas of math, science, and other subjects, we are working to build out a sector with trained parents who are supported and who give support, with teachers who are passionate and who believe in continuous quality instruction. It is to this end that we continue in our efforts to share the philosophy of education for Jamaica that reads, under God, the Jamaican educational philosophy embraces diverse learning capacity and styles, aiming to nurture each learner's full potential. We provide a comprehensive education, blending academic and vocational pursuits with values-based teaching and life skills. Our focus is on fostering community harmony, appreciating our cultural heritage, promoting inclusivity, environmental stewardship, and respect for all. Through this approach, we aim to cultivate learners' understanding of themselves, respect for humanity, and love for country, as embodied in our national vision, anthem, and pledge. Madam Speaker, this is a result of multiple consultations with key stakeholders from the Ecumenical Education Group, the Umbrella Group of Churches, the Jamaica Teachers Association, National Secondary Schools Council, Jamaica Prefects Association, Jamaica Union of Tertiary Students, Jamaica Association of Principals of Secondary Schools, and the Association of Principals and Vice Principals, along with members of the ministry. Our job now is to make this philosophy widely known and embraced by all persons. Madam Speaker, let me just touch on governance and accountability. Pillar number 1. Good governance is a key element in the ability to steer an education system as complex and young as Jamaica's, with multiple actors, each playing varied roles. We want to ensure quality education. We know that it depends on the existence of good governance. The key recommendations of the Commission are grouped under these 3 broad headings: governance, accountability, and legislative change. And it calls on us to reform board selection process, to increase training for school boards, to enhance training of principals, especially in relation to change management and financial management. Madam Speaker, this in the main seeks to transform the governance of schools and tertiary public educational institutions in our country, as we know that there's a proven positive relationship between effective governance and student performance. Madam Speaker, a revised set of procedures has been developed in keeping with the recommendations of the transformation report in terms of our school boards. And it calls on us to review the performance of school boards at the end of each board cycle with the introduction of a monitoring and evaluation framework, to train school board members, to streamline the current school governance arrangements, and to acknowledge our school board members. And I must share, Madam Speaker, that school board members constitute one of the largest group of volunteers in our country. They total almost 10,000, and they give many hours. And oftentimes, they give up their own resources to help our schools. They have the responsibility for ensuring fidelity to the Education Act and regulation. It is against this background that the service they provide is valued and acknowledged, Madam Speaker. We have an entity called the National Council on Education, NCE. It's a public body. It has overall responsibility for the governance portfolio to strengthen the school boards all across the system. We are undergoing a strategic review of the National Council currently because their job is an important one and one that we must do. The early childhood sector, Pillar 2, the second pillar of transformation. We all know that Jamaica has a long tradition of concern for its preschool population, and that the Early Childhood Commission, incorporated in 2003, is responsible for developing, monitoring, and evaluating. As we continue the transformation of Jamaica's education system, it is without a doubt agreed across all levels of our society that there must be a special focus on strengthening the early childhood sector as fundamental to any progress we are to make as a developing country. Jamaica currently boasts one of the world's highest rates of enrollment in early childhood institutions. Yes, and that is a good thing. The transformation report noted that while enrollment rates are high, we have to work quickly to improve the quality of care and training, including adequate exposure to developmental and educational activities. And so, Madam Speaker, measures are in place to improve the quality of pre-service teachers and in-service teachers at the early childhood level. For the last financial year, we're pleased to share that early childhood practitioners that have been trained in various areas concerned with professional development total 1,500. Principals and early childhood operators that have been trained, 1,269. Curriculum support sessions, including special education support, intervention, observation, building literacy and numerous skills, and so on, 4,138. Madam Speaker, 3,047 practitioners within our private basic schools receive a top-up stipend, or what is referred to as salary subsidy, to complement what they are provided with by their employers. The ministry is committed to having more qualified and trained teachers at the early childhood level. And an immediate strategy of the Ministry of Education and Youth is to ensure a pathway is created to enable the current cadre of 3,047 to become trained ECI teachers over the period of transformation. Madam Speaker, while we have been quiet about our efforts in the special needs area, we have not stalled. In fact, we have drawn gears with our efforts to improve services for children with disabilities and special and varied needs and their families. Two important recommendations are the following: improve the services available to children with disabilities, conduct research to accurately identify the prevalence and types of developmental disabilities at the early childhood level. Madam Speaker, St. Andrew Eastern happens to be a constituency with a significantly large number of persons with varied and special needs. And so the issues that affect many persons are the issues I'm faced with as a Member of Parliament and also as the Minister of Education and Youth. There has been much talk, especially in social media, about shadows, or we choose to call them special education assistants. These support staff, they do a lot to ensure that students engage academically, emotionally, and that they accompany students throughout the school day or even for part of the day. Madam Speaker, their work is not easy, but it is necessary. And regardless of the circumstances, they go above and beyond their expectations to work with our learners in need. And I'm pleased to note that new shadows trained total 213. Special needs students placed in private schools, 265. Special needs students who benefited from the shadow support, 275. And we continue to upgrade the early childhood sector. Madam Speaker, we're very encouraged with the efforts that the CPFSA makes to care for abused children who come into their care. The Child Protection and Family Services Agency continues to be the safety net for children who suffer all kinds of abuse. Under the guidance of a newly appointed Chief Executive Officer, the CPFSA is demonstrating its capacity to respond to the various needs and calls for help. The CPFSA works closely with the early childhood sector. In the period 2023 to 2024, the CPFSA received 13,513 reports of child abuse. And I just want to pause to let that number sink in. 6,314 of these calls were made via the 211 distress hotline. May is Child Month, and its theme is Stand Up, Speak Out, Protect the Rights of the Children. Madam Speaker, I pause at this time to remind the members of this honorable House to share with their constituents the 211 hotline. Yes. I implore Jamaicans of all ages to dial 211 when they feel a child is being abused. Madam Speaker, in my sectoral in 2021, as part of our reform to the child protection ecosystem, we sought and received approval from the Office of Utilities Regulation to activate 211 as a singular helpline for children at risk or for anyone who wishes to report child abuse. Hats off to my colleague Member of Parliament and the Minister, Robert Nesta Morgan, for relentlessly pursuing this. The hotline was launched in May 2021 during Child Month, exactly 3 years ago. At that time, we said it would be manned 24 hours by child care professionals and would be a significant addition to the child protection system. And Madam Speaker, it is, and that still holds. It is an important facility for all Jamaicans to report abuse. Madam Speaker, my colleague Senator and psychiatrist Dr. Sophia Longmore will tell all of us that child abuse isn't just about black eyes. While physical abuse is shocking due to the mark it leaves, not all signs of child abuse are as obvious.
Yeah, true.
Ignoring a child's needs, putting them in unsupervised, dangerous situations, exposing them to sexual situations, or making them feel worthless or stupid are also forms of child abuse and neglect. And these treatments that are all too frequently meted out to our children can and do leave deep, lasting scars on our children. Madam Speaker, we do not want any of our children abused.
No.
Not a boy child, not a girl child, no one. And regardless of the type of abuse, the result is harmful. And again, Madam Speaker, I say to all Jamaicans, if you suspect a child is suffering from abuse or neglect, it's important to speak out. And you can do so easily by dialing 211. By catching the problem as early as possible, both the child and the abuser can get the help that they need. Madam Speaker, I want to share that in 2021, in my first sectorial for the Ministry of Education and Youth, I promised that we would amend the Child Care and Protection Act 2004 to remove an aspect of Section 24 under which a court may make a correctional order in respect of a child brought before the court. I promised that aspect of Section 24 would be repealed and replaced with an option for the court to make a therapeutic order, thus finally ending the practice of labeling our children uncontrollable and placing them in penal institutions without charge. Madam Speaker, today I stand before you and say confidently, promise made, promise kept. We did exactly that. We went beyond simply amending Section 24. We provided, without too much delay, therapeutic center, one residential and one non-residential, and even a sensory room to be able to handle those situations in which the court makes a therapeutic order.
Well done.
Madam Speaker, I stand before you today with eyes wide open as I see on a daily basis through the many school and home visits exactly what is happening with and to our children. And I'm now more than ever determined and committed to making it better for our children. In June of last year, Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister opened a $200 million state-of-the-art therapeutic center at the Maxfield Park Children's Home. The center provides medical treatment, social intervention guidance, and psychological support for victims of child abuse. Madam Speaker, before the opening of the center, there was no facility for the delivery of effective screening, assessment, and therapeutic treatment for children who are exhibiting behavioral challenges. So the state was unable to effectively screen, assess, and diagnose children. But Madam Speaker, we have built this center. It is up. Action. And it is effective. Yes, the center is slated to benefit over 4,500 Jamaican children who are in child protection placement. There are, in terms of staff, 27 social workers are employed to the CPFSA. They're trained and certified in clinical social work. We have over 161 caregivers from 48 children's homes trained in skills to equip them. The therapeutic center is geared towards providing residential inpatient programs, a day treatment program, and outpatient counseling and psychotherapy services for children and their families. The building includes 4 consultation rooms, 4 screening rooms, to assessment rooms, manager's office reception, play areas, and so on. Madam Speaker, while the Therapeutic Center at the Maxfield Park Children's Home excellently serves those who primarily live in Kingston, we must ensure that we extend these services to other parts of Jamaica. In November of last year, a sensory room was launched at the Merton Boys Home in Mansion Hill, Portland. This space has been designed to enhance developmental assistance, to support stimulation therapy, offer assistive aid and educational support for children with special needs. So far, we have seen 581 children screened. We've seen 548 individual psychotherapy sessions held to support children who are experiencing emotional and mental health challenges across the nation. We are proud of the efforts to help our children. I also want to bring to your attention the Windsor Therapeutic Center that has been in operation since November of last year. This is another safe, supportive, and child-friendly service operation where children can be screened, evaluated, assessed, and treated by a team of multidisciplinary child services professionals who develop guided interventions for children and their families. There are a number of programs in these institutions. Madam Speaker, I just want to say a few words on the Jamaica Teaching Council. The Jamaica Teaching Council was established to regulate the profession, assure quality, professional support, recognize and award excellence in teaching, and to maintain a robust teacher management information system. I'm very pleased to report that in keeping with this mandate, the JTC did a highly commendable job in support of the professional development of teachers. As you know, Madam Speaker, we continue through the Jamaica Teaching Council to build capacity through mandatory teacher mentorship for beginning teachers, mandatory professional days yearly, providing trainers of teachers, support for teachers in how they teach boys, and so on. We're happy to report, Madam Speaker, that a beginning teachers induction ceremony was held for over 1,200 teachers who will enter the system in September of this year. Over 1,000 mentors have been trained to ensure support for beginning teachers and boys' education. Through the Jamaica Teaching Council, teachers are now being registered at the end of their final year of college in an attempt to ensure that all of our 25,000 plus teachers are registered. Madam Speaker, we continue in Parliament with the JTC bill. We are at the stage where we are reviewing the draft report, and in short order, we expect that we will lay that report in Parliament. Madam Speaker, I just want to touch quickly on the tertiary sector. In an attempt to implement the recommendation for streamlined governance framework for the higher education sector, the Ministry of Education and Youth is working on developing the higher education policy along with the financing higher education framework. We have had the help of our leaders at UTEC, UWI. We have seen the reports that CAPRI has done regarding funding of tertiary education, and we continue to explore that because it is our fervent wish for the expansion of the tertiary sector. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Education and Youth's effort also serve to improve the lives and livelihood of our young people. That is why we were deliberate in bringing back the Prime Minister's Youth Awards for Excellence in 2017, and why we've worked to expand the categories since then so that a wider cross-section of our youth can be recognized and celebrated for their hard work and outstanding contribution to national development. Since 2018, the award categories have expanded with the inclusion of things like Nation Builder, International Achievement, Innovation in Science and Technology, Environmental Protection, a youth serving organization, a social media influencer. In 2021, we introduced the category Prime Minister's Special Award for a 15 to 29-year-old who has excelled exceptionally in his or her field of work or study and whom the Prime Minister deems worthy of national recognition. In the past year, 76 applications were received, of which 50 were shortlisted and interviewed across 12 categories. The 2023 ceremony held on April 20th, 2024, attracted more than 1,800 persons, mostly young people. And Madam Speaker, sad to note, but allow me to extend my heartfelt condolences to the family of C.J. Cunningham, a 2022 Prime Minister Youth Awardee who was killed. Madam Speaker, our youth deserve the best, and we are happy to share that the Youth Innovation Centers are safe spaces designed to provide holistic empowerment for young people and also for at-risk and unattached young persons. There are currently 9 active Youth Innovation Centers. Our aim is for there to be 1 per parish, and I'm happy to report that we will see the reopening of 2 more Youth Innovation Centers in Hanover, Madam Speaker, and Portmore later this year. Madam Speaker, we also have the mandate in our high schools to provide TVET education to our young people. We have key initiatives for this year that will include increased certification by expanding access to assessment services in new and emerging skill areas to include the expansion of the online modality. Madam Speaker, we have the mandate to strengthen the quality assurance mechanism within the ministry schools towards becoming an approved TVET center. We have the mandate to build the capacity of teachers in assessment and quality assurance mechanism in TVET through collaboration and facilitation. Recertification under the Ministry of Education and Youth for the continuation of the issuance of National Vocational Qualification of Jamaica or Caribbean Vocational Qualification certificate is now within the portfolio of the Ministry of Education, and we are doing all that we can to encourage parents, we're urging parents to encourage their children to pursue careers in technical and vocational education and training. It is on the same platform as a traditional education. Yep. Madam Speaker, I could not end my presentation without speaking to some of the infrastructure gains that we've had as a government. Under the Primary and Secondary Infrastructure Program, through the National Education Trust, school expansion and electrical upgrading and construction of security fencing is happening. We've broken ground at Exchange All-Age in St. Anne, Bridgeport High School in St. Catherine for additional classrooms, Homewood Technical High School in St. Elizabeth, Cedric Titus High School in Trelawney, Jonathan Grant High School in St. Catherine. We've opened a new block at Black River High School in St. Elizabeth, de-shifting that school after more than 30 years on shift. We've opened inclusive classrooms at Beth Abra Infant School in Manchester, Jamaica China Goodwill Schools in Olympic Way, St. Andrew, and in Morant Bay, St. Thomas, and at Hooleyberry Primary and Infant. We've entered into public-private partnerships with Crystal House and with Inova to look at other school models for the Jamaican system. We continue to focus on building our ramps and railings in our schools. We continue our efforts to deal with the rising temperature in our classroom. Recently, the Chase Fund donated 1,752 fans to 338 early childhood institutions. Thank you, Chase. And we continue the effort, Madam Speaker. We continue with our technology efforts as well. I just want to remind this House that we work with our implementing agency, eLearning Jamaica, and they have already distributed to high schools 10,000 computers to upgrade each school's IT lab. We've done this in record time in one school year, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is the good policies of this government and the consistent good performance of revenues that has created the budget space to allow us to take on these massive technology upgrades and broadband connectivity across the length and breadth of the education sector. Let us not divorce what we have been able to provide to our schools from the consistently strong budget figures of this government. And Madam Speaker, some 25,700 teachers have received their vouchers to procure a laptop. Of this, some 24,000 teachers have redeemed their vouchers, bringing us closer to the target of 6,000 teachers. I implore teachers who have not yet redeemed their vouchers to do so. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Education and Youth is committed to a fit-for-purpose school learning infrastructure, and we are going to do all that we can to provide that. But here again, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, so sorry. I just told you, and we've been saying it time and time again, we've posted it on social media all over, that we have been providing laptops for our teachers. So here again, the opposition is out saying they will be giving laptops to teachers, as if
nothing new.
We have not been doing it. Madam Speaker, let me repeat. Some 25,700 teachers have received e-vouchers to procure a laptop.
Clueless. Right, Tony?
Nothing new to offer.
Right, Tony? Tony, quiet.
Madam Speaker, the final pillar of transformation calls for an adjustment to the funding model for schools to facilitate greater flexibility in the allocation of resources to schools. It calls us to implement a funding model that recalibrates the allocation based on the needs of schools in order to ensure equitable treatment. 4 working groups are currently being established, one at each level of the school system, meaning early childhood, primary, secondary, tertiary, to do a deep dive into the needs of schools and to give us an appropriate funding response guided by research. Additionally, Madam Speaker, at the tertiary level, again, we have to put our collective efforts in figuring out how to make tertiary education more accessible and affordable for our students. I know the Student Loan Bureau has been innovative with its programs, Corporate Jamaica has also provided assistance in the form of scholarships, and the diaspora is assisting as well. For these significant contributions, we say thank you on behalf of our students. And as I speak with our tertiary students, I know there is a greater effort needed. While we focus our minds on that, I'm pleased to note, and as announced recently by the Prime Minister, the allocation of $3 million each to members of Parliament to provide tertiary scholarships up to $200,000 per tertiary student. And we have your envelopes for you today.
Oh, yeah.
With instructions.
We'll take it.
Yes. We know that when individuals attain a higher level of education, they benefit from higher employment prospects, higher salaries, a greater ability to save and invest, and a better opportunity at social mobility. We want to open access to tertiary education to significantly more than the 10,000 or so students who go into tertiary currently. And Madam Speaker, I could not end without speaking to our very long tradition of teacher education institutions. And you know them well. It's the Church Teachers College, Maneague College, Shorter Teachers College, St. Joseph's Teachers College, the Michael, Bethlehem Moravian, Sam Sharp, VTDI, CASE, plus the faculties that we have at UWI and UTech. They provide services to the tertiary sector. As the agencies grew and evolved, there have been many duplications and overlapping functions, and so we are going to be working with these institutions to see where there are efficiencies in the system so that we can have a tertiary sector that includes our teacher education institution that is more well-oiled. I also could not end, Madam Speaker, without thanking the National Nutrition Products Limited for the conscientiousness with which they provide breakfast and snack items for our children. They continue to innovate and to ensure that our children consume less sugar in the products that they produce.
Important.
In closing, Madam Speaker, I remind all Jamaicans that transformation is a process that requires all hands-on-deck approach, and so it's our collective responsibility to support our teachers, to invest in our schools, to engage our children and youth to become active participants in not only their learning, but also in making our country and our world better and more sustainable. Madam Speaker, together we can. Together we are trending.
We're trending.
We're trending, transforming education for national development. And while, yes, get used to it. And while it will take time to see all the results that we would like to see, because we're dealing with changing mindsets, we are resolute, Madam Speaker, resolute that this time, the transformation of our education system must and will happen. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, a great presentation. A great presentation by the Honorable Fayval Williams. Thank you, Madam Minister. So, Madam Speaker, I now ask that the sectoral debate be suspended.
Members, the question before the House is that the sectoral debate be suspended. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Madam Speaker, it is not contemplated for us to do any further business today. I therefore ask that the House adjourns until Tuesday, May 14, 2024 at 2 p.m. when the Minister of National Security will make his presentation, the sectoral debate. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Members, the question is that the House do now adjourn for Tuesday, May 14 at 2 p.m. sharp. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. This honorable House now stands adjourned.